Episode 2.
That was, okay, so for the audience, we just finished recording with our first guest, Dan Johnson. You are all going to love it, because we loved it. It was really a remarkable, magical episode. We get into some super interesting topics with Dan, and yeah, I honestly think he was like the best first guest that we could have asked for.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job. He makes the expectations high for our future guests.
Yeah.
But no, I think we'll enjoy all of our guests. But yeah, Dan is on this episode, and he's my boyfriend. So there's some relationship questions for the end, but otherwise we're gonna talk about what he loves, like Sixers, video games.
Yeah. I think after watching this episode, our fans are really going to understand Dan on a much deeper level. We really get into like how he views himself, how he views the people around him, and how that relates to the things that he loves. And it's great.
Yeah, I think
he tells it all.
Yeah, he can crack some jokes. He's decent at that. And I hope people can relate to him too, like by getting to know him.
Yeah, but before we get into that, we'll have Dan on in a moment from your perspective. But we had a great first episode as well. That was just me, Rylan Deemer, and you,
Elisa Wildy.
And welcome to the wardrobe on yet another episode. This is the Who You Know podcast, and yeah, today we know Dan Johnson. But I wanted to talk about that first episode. Is there anything? I wouldn't say we winged it, because we both prepared questions in advance, and we were being very thoughtful about it, but we didn't share the questions with each other before the episode. So I'm hoping it didn't feel too disorganized, but was there anything you wanted to clarify, set the record straight on?
I don't think there's anything on my end. But no, I think overall maybe that episode I was still a little nervous. And so like maybe I saw that side of me, so that made me excited for episode 2 to like be more relaxed, just getting that first episode out of the way for me.
Did you feel more relaxed in talking with Dan today?
Definitely. And I don't know I think it's just the first episode is out of the way aspect. I was wondering if it was like there's a third person here and that's why, but I think it's just I feel so much more relaxed. But I don't think I have anything to go off on from episode 1, but do you have anything?
Yeah, so I do, but I also want to respond to what you just said, because I was also feeling nervous the first episode, and I don't know if it's apparent to people, because I've been told that I mask it really well, but definitely I had nerves, and I felt like in today's conversation with Dan, it felt 95% of the time I felt like I had no nerves at all. It was just, it felt so good, and I was excited after the first episode. But after the second episode, I'm sky high.
Yeah.
Like, I am beyond excited for the future. And we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Let me first say, I don't know if this is setting the record straight, but I talked a little bit about my dad in the first episode, and I love him so much. And he really sacrificed a lot in my childhood to like provide for family. I mentioned that he would be away from the home for, a week, 2 weeks. At its longest, it was a couple months for work. And while that did affect me and changed how I developed, I'm also so beyond happy with who I became as a person.
Right.
And, I have him and my mom to thank for that, for raising me so well. And just making me into the person that I am. So I was talking in the first episode in the context of my dad being away a lot and how I relate to men versus women. And I didn't want that to come across as like a negative thing at all, because people love me. I'm unique. I am who I am. And the way that I was raised is part of that. So yeah, I have no like ill feelings about that. So I just want to make that clear. Like, I love my dad so much, and my mom, but my comments were about my dad. So I just wanted to make sure the record was clear on that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like, we just talked about how it shaped you as a person and psychology or behind that, which I enjoy, looking back and reflecting on my own life about that too.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great things up and coming. As you can tell, we are investing in the show. We brought on a second microphone. We also worked a lot on the audio filters, so hopefully this one sounds a lot better for everyone. We also put up some more soundproofing on one end of the room. We got a lot going on over here. I hope you're all excited. We're definitely excited to keep improving. I think the next thing we want to do is get a new table, so... yeah, we are actively looking at estate sales for something good there. But yeah, stay tuned. We'll have Dan on in a few minutes here in the wardrobe. This is the Who You Know podcast, and thanks all for joining us. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the wardrobe. This is the Who You Know podcast, and the person that we know that we are introducing you to today is Dan Johnson, boyfriend of Elisa Wilde. I'm, of course, Rylan Deemer.
And I'm Elisa Wilde.
And let's get started. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're really honored. You are our first guest, obviously, and so we're very nervous. But we did some prep. We looked deep into your past.
Okay.
And I think you've got to be feeling pretty good today. But let me know, because I looked up what happened with the Sixers yesterday, and they won.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you feeling?
I'm kind of neutral. So I in preparation for last night's game, and for those who aren't watching this, the day after the game, that was Game 6 of the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Sixers really laid an egg the game prior, so I'd sort of emotionally checked out a bit in preparation for the potential that they would lose that series and crush my heart.
Yeah, so you're feeling good. The Sixers won. They laid an egg last time. What does laying an egg mean?
Well, for a specific example, it's when you're up by 26 and proceed to lose the game. So that's one specific example of laying an egg. But yeah, just a disappointing performance, I guess. It's a shorter example.
Yeah. And do you have high hopes for this season?
Heading into it, not especially. It was sort of a reset year where the franchise was really bad last year, or at least didn't meet expectations. So heading in, expectations weren't that high. The team proceeded to then overperform any preseason expectations. So then, obviously, heading into the playoffs, you sort of recalibrate where you're looking at this team prior to the season and where you're at now. And yeah, I was really hoping that this would be a championship run. At this point, I'm not so confident, but holding up hope.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll win Game 7?
Oh, they'll definitely win Game 7. Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
And like in the context of your relationship, how, because I know Elisa isn't as emotionally invested in the Sixers as you are, probably by a degree of magnitude.
Yeah.
But she's been emotionally invested in you, obviously. So how does your love of the Sixers interact with your relationship? And like, how does Elisa support you through each season?
Wow.
Or how do I not?
Well,
Yeah.
I will say, so it's much easier to be an overreactionary, like insanely passionate fan when you're not in a relationship, because if you're living alone, no one else has to deal with the repercussions of your team losing, or how I might have reacted to that. So I actually think Elisa has calmed down the worst side of my fandom a little bit, where I try not to get so down, because I know there is another person that has to live with me. Like it's not anything that it's not an individual experience. How I react to both the highs and the lows are going to be affected by or felt by another person. So I think she's helped curb some of the worst sides of it, and then also it just gives me another outlet. Like previously, a disappointing loss or the season even ending, it definitely takes a bit of time to like find the next thing like that I'm gonna spend mental energy focusing on for the majority of not the majority of days, but having another person, it just gives me a quick outlet to be like, okay, they lost, but I still have an awesome person next to me, and she makes lots of plans for us, so it's easy to distract myself.
I think it's in his favor that growing up, I didn't have a professional team that I followed. And so when I started dating him, he just morphed me into like, okay, you're a Sixers fan, you're an Eagles fan, etc. And so I would say I'm a fan. It's not like his fan experience, but I have to be a fan of the Sixers and the Eagles now. But it's helpful that I wasn't a fan of anything before, that I can be morphed.
I think the easiest way to compare our fandoms in my mind is Elisa's a fan during the games, so she'll root and care for wins and losses during the game, and that's when she cares about it. Whereas I'm the fan, in the sense that the games sort of permeate through the rest of my life, in both good and bad. But when the team is doing well, I tend to be pretty chipper on most days. It's just easier to wake up with a smile and whatnot. Whereas when they're doing poorly, I'm not depressed, but it's like, damn, like that thing I look forward to in life, that that thing that's mine is not going the best. So it definitely affects the rest of my life much more than it affects Elisa's outside of the actual game time.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that we wanted to talk about. Like how being a fan is so embedded in you, and like what it means to you. So, kind of specifically, does being a fan mean that you just relate to the team, or do you also relate to like other fans of the Sixers or the Eagles, depending on the season? Is that like something that bonds you to other people in a community? Or like how do you experience that? Because it's not something that I have any, direct experience with.
Yep.
It being a fan of a sports team. And I think,
Not really.
while you're a fan of the Sixers, as you pointed out, it's like during the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd kind of like to explore a little bit about, how you experience that and what it means to you yourself, and when you see that life fandom in other people.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit it on the head pretty well, where it does create that bond between people that you've never met before, like just walking down the street. And the easiest example is, I don't know, the Eagles won the Super Bowl a few years ago, and it just every single person for the next couple of years that I saw after that wearing a piece of Eagles gear or doing any of that, it was just an instant like, yeah, like me and you, we went through it and we made it. Like, and I guess the way I don't know, the easiest comparison to make is, it's almost like a form of, it's going to sound bad when I say it, but like nationalism, like on a smaller scale, but people want to root for the place that they were born, or the country that they're from, and whatnot. So being the fan of a sports team, I'm from the Philadelphia area. I root for all the Philadelphia sports teams, although the Eagles and the Sixers hold the highest in my heart. But it's sort of like wanting it for the city of Philadelphia. Now, I do get an emotional attachment to the athletes themselves as well, but it's more so that like I care about the teams, which you'll let people tell you both things. Like you should care about the players more, you should care about the teams more. But I think I side more with the teams. Like just in terms of, I'm not going to follow a player around the league and root for whatever team he's on. I'm going to continue to root for the Philadelphia sports teams, because again, it's really like that. It's sort of a bit of like nationalism, but it's it's my city. It's like, oh, I want to see Philadelphia succeed. Like I want our sports teams to succeed, because I know it does lift the whole area up. Like it's
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon, and I saw that when I was in Chicago, when the Cubs when the Cubs
Yep.
won. That was, I mean, the whole city went ballistic in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
People threw open their windows. It's a quiet neighborhood normally, and everyone's just screaming out to the street. It was beautiful. So, that's probably like the one part of sports fandom that I have experienced is the way that it can affect an entire area. It's really something special.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side of the coin, you said you feel that bond with other fans. What about anti-fans, people who are against the team? Like, how do you feel about people that are rooting for the other side? Does that color your opinion of them?
I don't think I would ever let it get to the point of actually letting it like affect my opinion of a person. I actually try to, as much as possible, I try to remove like vitriol or hate from my sports fandom. Just in terms, like, I don't know, you can have a lot of I don't know, I guess like harmful sports fans or whatever, where their fandom is driven by hate. Like it's hate for the other team or hate for a certain player or woe is me. I try to avoid that because I don't think that's the healthiest way to view sports. But it's also just not my personal favorite way. Like I want to support my team for being my team. I don't want to root against the other team. The one exception is the Cowboys. I do hate the Dallas Cowboys, but not their fans, just that team in general. So, I mean, again, like I will say there is one example where I did let it get to me. Elisa and I went to an Eagles bar in the local area to watch a playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks, and there was a Seattle fan that was also at the bar, which of course, like, it's not like an exclusively Eagles bar. It's just a lot of Eagles fans were there. But this guy was especially he was trying to instigate. Like he was, just very vocal and very derogatory with his vocalness about just he wasn't rooting for the Seahawks as much as he was rooting against the Eagles. It felt like so that definitely irked me, and I didn't do anything about it. But I was venting to Elisa for most of the game that I was pretty upset at this guy.
But it was also not upset that he's a Seahawks fan. It was upset that he was sort of mean or derogatory, like you said, to the Eagles fans. It's like disrespectful, I feel like, was the part that was bothering you, right?
Potentially. I mean, playoffs are a different animal. So
I mean, you know people who are Cowboys fans,
yeah.
and like it doesn't bother you
No.
knowing they're Cowboys fans. It's just you hate the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Well, and for
Just
that
the
one
team.
guy, I mean, it was at an Eagles bar, so that says something about what he was trying to do there.
Yes.
I also call it an Eagle. It is not like the sign on the door doesn't say Philadelphia Eagles fans only. Like it's a local bar that Eagles fans choose to congregate at as a means of getting together.
So like if it was his first time there, he'd probably have no idea. But like I feel like as the season goes on, like what teams congregate at this bar.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
So anyways, I guess back to the original point. I do try to separate, I guess, the fandom from the person. Like I'm not going to ever judge it because again, it's also like that person isn't like not every Cowboys fan was born in Dallas, obviously, but a large percentage are, and I'm not going to like ever be mad at someone for being born in the city and supporting that city. Like that's just a silly thing to.
Could you live in Dallas?
Yeah, probably.
Did the Cowboys did they hurt you? Like why? Why them?
Well, they are the Eagles' biggest rival, but why them specifically? Like, it's a sort of like the elitism, I guess, like because they have this storied history. So essentially, they can dangle it in front of your face, and they choose to because obviously, why not? Like, if you have this history and you are a successful franchise compared to the Eagles, who prior to a few years ago had never won a Super Bowl, it's really easy to sort of kick down, which is. I don't know that I wouldn't do the same thing in that position. It's hard to say. I've always been a fan of a city with very unfortunate sports teams, so I haven't been in that position too often. But it's just and it's not like the Cowboys aren't the only franchise that does this. I mean, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but the Yankees elitism is like another example. Lakers as well. It's all these these teams that have just had so much success in their history, I'm just like, take a back seat for like 10 minutes. Like let another franchise do something. And then, yeah, you can have your turn later on, but it's, I don't know. It's the sense that they always have to win and they always, yeah, that they deserve it more than your team does in one way or another, which is silly to me. But.
So when I was growing up, and I'm hoping you can help me understand this, but when I was growing up, I in a couple different instances and to some different degrees, I was made fun of for not liking sports, not liking hunting, liking video games, like basically the things that I enjoyed and didn't enjoy. It was communicated to me that I was less manly because of that. Do you think for yourself that there's some aspect of like how you experience being a man specifically that is tied up with your love of sports or the love of these specific teams? Is there something to that?
This might not be answering your question directly, but I think it's related. So I also grew up not liking sports. I was very much like a nerdy kid, which still am a nerdy person, but grew up, I was playing video games inside. Like I wanted to stay inside and play video games or, I don't know, like strategy games with my friends or whatnot. So I was not like a sports person growing up. But I was always like a bit bigger than my classmates. Like I was just a naturally fairly large person. So I think, in my dad's eyes, I was always destined to play football at some point. Like, oh, my son's like, my dad's a big sports guy. He was, played his whole life, loves watching sports. So he'd always wanted me to be like a bigger sports, I guess, fan and like player than I was. And it wasn't like I avoided it entirely. Like I played, all the t-ball growing up and intramural soccer leagues and whatnot, but it was just not what I was passionate about. And I don't know what flipped my switch, but prior to 8th grade, it was almost like a decision where I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll try it out. And I watched NFL Network for the entire summer. And I was like, oh, this football thing's pretty cool. Like, I like it. And so then I played football in the fall for my middle school. And then from there on, it's just been like an obsession.
Oh, that's so interesting that you just kind of pivoted into it.
Yeah, it was a hard pivot because I didn't, again, I don't think I grew up not watching sports because I did and I played them growing up. But again, I wasn't like a huge fan of even the Philadelphia sports teams until I was in 8th grade. I was always a big Michigan Wolverines fan because my dad was originally from Michigan. So that was like the one thing I actually did grow up watching was the Michigan football games. And even then I was more of like I wanted to go to Michigan for my academics. And I liked the football team, but like I liked the school more for being, I don't know, the University of Michigan. But yeah, it was a pretty hard pivot prior to 8th grade. And, back to your original question about the manliness component, I'm sure that's some of my dad's motivation, or at least like, I think there was some element of him that wanted me to do this. So it was like, yeah, like, I'll give it a shot. And I don't think I made, and this is a long time ago at this point, so my memory is not completely clear, but I don't think I made it solely for my dad, but I think it might have been, I'm sure it impacted it. I mean, you want to, I guess, make your parents proud of you. Although, again, I don't think that was my main motivation. I truly did really love it after that summer. So it was just bit of a switch flip. And then even, I'm rambling a little bit, but even once I got into high school, it was a means of making friends as well. So it was weird. Like the transition from middle school to high school was a big transition in my friend group. I ended up stopped hanging out with a lot of my middle school and elementary school friends. And I started hanging out with this new group of people where they were really into sports and they were really into fantasy sports. So I'd never played a fantasy sport prior to high school, but now, again, it's another thing I'm obsessed with. So yeah, I mean, sports are almost as much of a social catalyst for me as much as anything. Like they help me make friends. So
that's really fascinating. And you've used the word obsession a couple of times. So we also wanted to talk about video games.
Oh, okay.
And obviously, like I mentioned, this is something that is near and dear to my heart. But how do you handle like the time commitment involved with being a I don't necessarily like this word, but being a gamer, like that's a lot to juggle. We have a demanding career,
Yep.
which requires additional work being done outside of the job. You're following sports closely, and also you are an accomplished gamer. You have many achievements.
I feel like you have to pick and choose your battles, obviously. I mean, there was a pretty decent period of time, especially right after college, where I don't think I was as much of a gamer. I was more of the casual, like, I'll play Fortnite with my friends when they're available, but it wasn't like I wasn't banging out, 60-hour single player campaigns for a period of time. And it was, I don't know, partially because I think I had an Xbox and I wasn't crazy about their exclusives as much as I was some other things that were out there. But then, I mean, to your point, like, yeah, there only is so much time. So it definitely comes in waves. So when I'm studying, I virtually, don't play very much video games at all. And when I do, it's sort of hit it and quit it games, like very compressible. Like I don't have to sit here for a few hours and get invested. It's something I can pick up for 30 or 40 minutes and then put back down and have that fill the gap. Lack of sleep helps as well. I'm still at the point in my life where I'm able to subsidize sleep for some of the other entertainment and hobbies that I have, which probably isn't a great long-term solution, but it does work in the short term, and it helps because I don't want to be someone who plays video games all the time and it doesn't hang out with his lovely girlfriend at all. So she sleeps at a normal time. So if I don't sleep at that normal time, I can sort of steal back time. Like I get this whole span of time where I can both enjoy my hobby, but then also not throw away the time that I would have had to do other things that are theoretically more important in life. So
theoretically,
yeah. Well, whoops. Actually, more important. Sorry, there's a weird audio glitch.
So, I might have asked you this before, but I don't remember your answer. Do you wish that I played video games? Like, would you enjoy me, like, being able to spend time that way with me?
I don't think it's anything I'm missing right now. Like, I guess, yeah, I don't sit around like, oh, dang it, like, Elisa's really not the perfect girl because she can't hang with me in Mario Party. But
I can't.
she can't.
He always wins.
Yeah, that's not something I get hung up on. I mean, I don't know. It would just be another facet of who you are, but that's not like I don't think I ever. I don't know. I wasn't one of those guys who was like, oh, my dream girl is gonna have a 3.0 KD in Call of Duty. Like she's gonna be this hardcore gamer. I mean, I think it's actually kind of healthy. Like we do have our own hobbies, and it's not something that we have to get competitive over, which is nice. Like I love playing board games with you, but that can get competitive, and it can cause some awkward nights. So it's nice to not have to,
We're some competitive people when it comes to board games,
Yeah.
so it's probably better we don't play video games too.
yeah, that's fair. And
I don't know, Rylan. How about you? Do you wish Chen? Oh, I don't know if I should say.
yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay,
fine.
yeah.
She might be a guest at
Right,
some
that's
point.
true.
So yeah, and my wife's name is no secret.
He has a wife. Sick brag, bro. Do you wish Chen was more in the video games, or you could play with her?
It's an interesting question. It's not like you used the word enjoy, I think, or maybe it was use the word enjoy in your question. I don't remember. But for me, if Chen played video games, it's not an aspect of like it being fun or whatever for me, but video games are such a large part of how I experience the world and how I process my life that playing video games I think would make it easier to understand me as a person. And it's fine that she doesn't. What that means is I spend time talking with her, about the things I experience in games, describing how it makes me feel, why it makes me feel that way. So, it takes some extra effort on my part to help her understand who I am. And she doesn't need to play video games for that to happen. It just means that there's like an additional step in me, sharing who I am with her. So, do I wish she played? I don't think it really matters. Because whether she plays or not, I'm going to find a way to share myself with her. Yeah.
I guess last question. Elisa, do you wish that you were a gamer and could share that?
So I don't wish I was a gamer in the aspect of I don't want to spend 60 hours playing a game. But I wish I was better so that I could compete with people. Because now, like, if someone were to ask me to play Call of Duty with them, for example, I'm going to say no because I know I'm not going to do well. I'm not going to be a good teammate. I'm not going to be a good, like, competition. So that frustrates me. It's the only reason I wish I could play is just for multiplayer aspect and be able to participate in something like that. But I also don't think I have enough motivation to try to get better. So maybe the short answer is no, I guess not.
Do you?
But
sorry, were you?
No.
I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
So, we talked about like fandoms related to sports. Do you feel anything similar to that with video games? Like, do you connect with gamers on some level? Because I ask because I feel like that's how you and I bonded at first. For those who aren't aware, Dan and Elisa are both my coworkers, and I think we met at work because we were collaborating on something.
Yeah, I think we used to. We worked in adjacent roles.
Right, and it came out pretty quickly that we played games, and that to me was, I was like, oh, cool. Someone who understands at least some aspect of me, and then we were able to just like share that.
I don't know if I have that. I don't know if like consciously I made that connection. There very well could have been a subconscious, because I do think those, those connections and those, it's almost like a comfort level. Like as soon as you heard that, you probably like, you felt more comfortable. It was, I'm those things happen automatically, and I feel like it probably did like make it easier to talk to you or make it easier to have that relationship, because there's there's plenty of people in life that I don't feel like that initial connection. Like there's so many things that you don't connect on. You just live different lives or you have different hobbies. So no, I think to your initial point, I don't think that clicked for me until maybe you asked that question, but I'm sure it did have some impact to helping build that relationship. I mean, it is, I don't know. I felt since I've started it in the work life, I've been fortunate enough to, all my coworkers are good people. Like I've been fairly fortunate to just work with good people, and also we all are in the same field, so that's like another instant. If like a connection with someone is a certain threshold you have to achieve, that's like 50% of the battle right there. Is just being in the same field or the same profession. It's like, okay, so I have something. Like there's that initial common ground, and then I'm sure, like you said, the video games may have pushed that over that threshold where it's a friendship. It blooms from there. So, but yeah, I don't feel it as much as I do with the sports though. Like it's like I don't hear that someone plays video games and immediately I'm like, oh, this person like knows me or knows my struggle. Whereas if I see someone like who roots for the Sixers or whatever, I'm like, oh, they've been through it with me. Like that person, because I do think also, well, that's probably a bad conception, but video games themselves are also a bit more of a broad category. Like if you liked a specific game that I liked or like a certain franchise, then that's probably another level. Whereas both being the fan of the same sports team, like that's a bit more concentrated or specific. Like if someone likes sports in general, there's still there's a large percentage chance we don't like the same sports, and then you sort of lose that. Like it's only one level to it. So just knowing that you like video games, themselves, it's like, he might like this weird game that I'm not a huge fan of. But I think we also had similar interest in the games as well, which helped. I don't know that we've actually, well, I don't know that our libraries are the exact same, but I think we are interested in the same genres and whatnot. So
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up, because I guess when I am talking about that connection that I feel between myself and other gamers, it is specific to people that have at least some overlapping taste in games as I do. Like if all somebody plays is Call of Duty, Battlefield, I may not relate to them as well as somebody who plays Hades and Monster Hunter. Yeah, that's a great point.
And I was gonna bring up, like, I feel like you are emotionally invested in your sports teams, but are you like emotionally invested in any specific video game too? But like, do you feel that same? I don't know. I feel like emotions might get you to connect with someone more over an emotional topic, such as the Sixers. I don't know. Versus, I don't know if you have that same connection with video games, or is there a game?
I don't think it's quite at the same level. I mean, you can probably attest. You've never seen me jump up and down and scream at a video game as much as I have.
But you've cried, right?
I did cry at the end of Spider-Man, the PS4 version of Spider-Man. Very emotional ending. That's a little bit different, though. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But I guess like the raw emotions aren't quite the same. But there are certain video games that almost get to that level because they're almost like sports themselves. So for a time, I was really invested in the Overwatch, which, getting a win in that was almost like getting a win playing a game of pickup basketball. Like it was just like there's so much like teamwork and like games like that do come close to. I think it's not sports fandom, I guess, as much as actually like playing the sport, but they come close to eliciting that same response where it's like a mixture of pride and just raw testosterone like coming out. So.
Well, and it's certainly, I think, understandable why esports is becoming such a big deal. I mean, team sports have exploded in popularity. Can definitely understand like people connecting with their team, like maybe they're big Cloud9 stands. Like it makes perfect sense. And so I think you're seeing a lot of that like emotional connection that you have to like a traditional physical sports team. In the esports world as well. It's
kind of funny. So in actual sports fandom, I'm much more of like the team-oriented person and whatnot, which I think is why I struggle to get into some other sports, like, I don't know, golf, for example, or tennis, where it's so individual and I just don't relate to any one individual. I think I'm the opposite on esports, where I actually do. I was in the professional Super Smash Bros. Scene for a while, and I did really get invested in some of the individual players, and I was like, I want this guy to win. Like, I don't really... I didn't care about the sponsors as much, but it was like actual specific gamers. I was like, yeah, like I really like the way this guy plays or his style. So I do want that person to succeed. So it's sort of the flip-flop of each other.
Wow, I wonder why. Like, I wonder, is it the geographic thing? Like Philadelphia is where your sports teams are from, and you just don't have that geographic.
Potentially. And I could be wrong here, but it might be the fact that just the individual scene of video game tournaments like developed quicker than the team scene did. Like there's been tournaments for individuals for video games probably going back as long as video games have existed. So that's like a fairly developed concept and just like general format. Whereas these team-based games are only starting to come up. I don't know, because Philadelphia actually does have, like the Sixers, my favorite basketball team. They actually do. I think they're invested in a professional Overwatch team. Now, I don't care about that team at all, but it's out there, so it's weird. I don't know what the exact answer is. I don't know. It's interesting.
So we three are sitting around this table, and we're all actuaries. We wanted to talk a little bit about that, and I think to start, like how it's such an unknown profession. So how did you decide, how did you even like learn about being an actuary, what it means to be an actuary, and decide to devote at least your young adulthood to it?
I think I'm a little abnormal in this sense, and I feel like I've told this story so many times, it's almost cliche at this point, even though this will be the podcast first time hearing it. But
you heard it here first, folks.
Yes, you heard it here first. My 7th grade math teacher, out of the blue one day, like, I don't know, I was always fairly good at math. And by fairly good, like really good at math, but I don't want to brag too much. But so I was really good at math growing up, and my 7th grade math teacher, I think just out of the blue, she said, like, hey, there's this profession, actuarial science, which is like always ranked among the top 10 professions in the country. Like, you should look into it. So I think I probably went home that night and Googled top 10 professions. Like, oh, is this lady serious? Like, let me find this top 10 list. And sure enough, I don't know, whatever, 3 or 4 or 5, wherever it was, actuarial science was up there, and it was the two like the hallmark features where I think a good work-life balance was one of them, which, you know, we can discuss whether that's true or not, but it was noted for having a good work-life balance, and then obviously paying a lot. So I'm I acknowledge that I'm a bit of a probably lazier person than the average. I don't know. I think I have a bit of laziness to me, which, so when I hear, you know, so I'm about optimizing. I like optimizing most situations. So if I hear, you know, good work-life balance, which to me equates to lower work hours plus higher pay, well, that's an optimization. Like, that's a market inequality right there. So anyways, my 7th grade teacher suggested it to me, sort of just stuck. Like, it sounded good. You can ask Elisa. Like, this, she's seen, like, was it like an essay or something that I had from 8th grade, or it was like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I don't know.
I don't remember what it said, but I actually thought your grandpa also had like a lot of influence. Well, he was a math professor, right?
Yeah, my grandpa was a math professor, and, you know, he has a PhD in some form of mathematics. So I more so attribute him to why I was good at math. I don't think he was. I mean, I'm sure he probably knew what an actuary was, but he wasn't the reason that I found out what an actuary was.
No, you're right, because I think I was shocked that in 8th grade you knew I want to be an actuary, and I was like, what the heck? How did you know what an actuary was in 8th grade? But okay.
So that was sort of just something I never deviated from. Like, it wasn't like always the thing that, you know, people would ask, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I think I would always throw out, like, oh yeah, like maybe be an actuary, but also, you know, I'm not like dead set on that, but it just stuck around. It was always like sort of the top of my list. And I was like, okay, you get to the time when college is rolling around, and why not? Sure. Like, I haven't found anything better that I've heard about, so I'll go down this path. Pretty much exclusively applied to schools that were centers of actuarial excellence, which isn't that tough on the East Coast because, I don't know, a lot of the Northeast or Big Ten schools do have that designation. But so it's not like you know, you don't need to go to an Ivy League school to go to a school that's a center of actuarial excellence or has that designation. But yeah, I just kept going down that path. Probably I don't know, the only time I ever thought about deviating was like sophomore year in college, I want to say. Yeah, sophomore year in college, the head of our actuarial program at Penn State, that's where I went to school, he actually emailed me directly noting that I got a B- in calculus in my freshman year. And he asked, like, he said I was not good enough at math and I should probably consider switching careers. So I don't know, to me, that sort of lit a fire, and I was like, all right, I'm going to show this guy. Like, I'm going to keep doing this and finish it out. So yeah, I've just been doing it since then.
Oh, you really dunked on that guy. Thank God.
He was a really good professor. I don't want to down talk him, but
no shade.
I know why he did what he did, because it is such a, you know, it's a difficult field, and also at least at Penn State, and I'm sure at other schools, you don't really have the weed out class until your junior year. Mm-hmm. So for people that are going down this path, and then eventually they get to the point where they're like, you know, this actually is harder than I think it is, and I can't do it. They're pretty far into their college careers, which makes transitioning to something else just difficult. So I understand what his intentions were, and he wanted to just give people a fair warning. I thought his wording was disrespectful, so I decided to take it personally and, you know, try to prove him wrong. But yeah, no, I wasn't. In hindsight, I understand what it was and what he was doing.
And some people need that kind of disrespect thrown at them to give them that fire in the belly to push through it. It sounds like, in a way, it helped you, even if you didn't feel good about it in the moment.
It definitely did help me. I mean, I was a bad college student pretty much for my first couple of years. I picked up a lot of bad habits in high school where, you know, I performed very well in high school, but I learned to game the system in a sense where I didn't have to work that hard in high school to to perform well, and I tried to carry that same work ethic into college, which flew for a couple classes, but eventually you get to the point where you actually do have to work hard in college, and I that was a shock to me. So I ended up, like I said, I got a B- in calculus too, which I probably shouldn't have. Just if I worked harder or actually gave it the effort it deserved. So no, I mean, I definitely did need that shock because, yeah, like I said, I had a lot of bad habits that I needed to break, and I did break them. And especially in our career, you have to be really good at studying, which I wasn't the best at studying prior to college. I was more of a, let me see the notes 30 minutes before the exam, and I'll remember most of it and be able to do pretty well. Whereas in the actuarial exams, you can't like shortchange them, or else they'll kick your butt. So, yeah.
Are you still like thriving in the actuarial field now? Like, are you still feeling fulfilled by being an actuary?
Fulfilled's a funny word. I don't think I guess I don't feel like any sort of spiritual gratification from the work I do or anything like that, but I am very satisfied with my career and with the work I do. Like I enjoy it. It makes my days, I don't despise going to work. I like the work I'm doing. I like the problems that I have to solve. It's not something that I feel like I'm changing the world with. And it's not something that, is going to, like, one of my goals is to hopefully retire, somewhat young. So it's not one of the things that, and maybe this changes in the future, but I don't think I'm going to be one of those people that does this for fun or ends up trying to be a professor because they love it so much, anything like that. It's sort of it's a means to an end. I think I've identified that, like, I do have to work for X number of years in order to live the life that I eventually want to live when I'm retired. So yeah, it sounds crude, but it is a bit of a means to an end. Like I want to.
And it's an enjoyable way to get there.
Exactly. Yeah, it is an enjoyable way to get there. So I do feel fulfilled in the sense, but yeah, there's different, I guess, forms of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And what does that retired life look like for you? Like you have some vision, it sounds like, for this end game.
Somewhat. I guess I don't know. Obviously, well, I guess maybe not obviously. I'm of the opinion that you only live once. I don't believe in any sort of reincarnation or anything like that. So I think I have to experience as much of the world as I can while I'm here. So, and that takes time and money. Like essentially those are, I'll say, the two components you need to actually explore the world and to get the most out of it. So I hope it's a lot of travel. That's one of my dreams, is just, actually go around and see the world and see as much of it as I can. And then I don't know what else. This is probably something I should figure out. Maybe golfing, but I don't like golfing that much right now.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some, something to take my time in between the traveling, because it's hard to travel 24/7. But that's the biggest thing, is just travel, hang out with my beautiful, hopefully someday wife. But
did you just propose on air?
Redact.
We'll save it for another day.
No, but yeah, I don't know. I just want to see everything I can while I'm here. So, and it's hard to do while you're working, and it's hard to do. Well, again, there's sort of the two components that I've identified are time and money, which I don't know if there might be some other ones as well, or maybe I'm simplifying it. But
travel sounds nice to me.
I think we're running up on time, and I want to touch on one last topic though,
okay,
before we cut out here. So, along the lines of your relationship, you two live together, right? And I think I've heard from both of you about, when you moved in, some family conversations around that with your parents specifically. So. But obviously you still made the decision to move in together. So, maybe give us some context around like how some of those conversations went with your parents about the move in, how it made you feel, and like, just how did you process that act of rebellion or however you view it?
Well, yeah. Well, maybe I'll bring up how it went first too. So like, I think it was your idea at first, and like maybe I was nervous only because of I'm like, what will my parents think? What will even some friends think? And I'm like, I don't know. That was the only part that was like made me second guess or hesitant about it. And so eventually I'm just like, it's my life. I want to enjoy it. So like that's kind of my thought process. But did you ever have that hesitancy like I did either because of that?
I don't think so. And I think it's largely because I'm so separated from my family as it is in my life.
Just
So-
by distance, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, because the podcast doesn't know, I moved after college to work at my current job. And that was a big move, like across the country. So, I ended up living on my own for about a year, 2 years maybe. So I sort of just, I don't know, it felt like, with distance and again, like I guess I don't have to deal with the repercussions of a decision like that on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to, I only see my family maybe 4 or 5 times a year, whether I'm going home or they're coming to visit. So, I don't have to, again, deal with the repercussions really. My life is very separate from my family's at this point when I'm making this decision, whereas yours was still very intertwined to an extent because you still live close to your family.
Because like after college, I lived with my parents still. And then I had probably just moved into an apartment with a friend. Oh, I don't know. Like it would have been a couple months in, like maybe 6 months in. And then we thought about when our leases end in another 6 months, what we'll do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I also think it's a little interesting. So I think there is the religious component as well, where I think, so it's funny. I think it's a bit of, like sort of degrees of separation. So my parents aren't very religious, but we did go to church on a number of Sundays as a kid, and they tried to bring me up in that way. But it's almost, I don't know, the way I view it, my mom almost did a lot of this in order to please her mother, my grandmother, who was very religious and very traditional, like conservative values and whatnot. So I think a lot of what my mom was doing as a kid was, well, not as a kid, as she was raising us, was I think there was some component that obviously I think she is, I don't think my mom's unreligious. I think she does, she was somewhat religious, but she also wanted to do this so that my grandma was pleased as well. And it was almost the same thing with this decision where, my mom's initial reaction was that she wasn't pleased, but it's my life and I can do what I want with it. But I think almost the majority of her displeasure was with the fact that she knew like this would greatly upset my grandmother, who to this day does not know that Elisa and I are living together. My mom has made the executive decision of just not telling her that and using other, I don't know what I was going to say. I don't know, just giving her a different story about what my current situation out here is. So anyways, but I think to you that religion component was a bit closer because I don't want to misspeak, but I think your mom is a little bit more religious than.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the only part about, like, that's the only reason behind why it probably bothered my mom. I really don't know what my dad thinks. I think my mom's the one who speaks up about it more.
So you've had a conversation with your mom about it. Can you, how did that conversation go?
I can't remember how it first came up. I want to say this was probably even over text. Like, I don't even think I called her or if it was in person, but she probably was asking me, like, am I going to live another year with my roommate or something? And I said, I think I'm going to move in with Dan. Like, and I honestly don't, I think she just gave me her opinion. Like, I don't think you should, but you're an adult, so I can't, like, control what you do. Like, I'll have to let you do whatever you want. So, like, she understands that, too.
I mean, that sounds healthy.
Yeah.
Right?
And, but, like, even a couple months ago, she kind of brought it up again, and I was just like, Mom, it's not going to change. So, like, I'm not going to do anything about it now. And I don't think that was her intention, but.
Mm-hmm.
I think another more lighthearted and kind of funny reason my mom was more on the set, again, she was fairly supportive. It was just that initial like gut reaction of her was like, oh no, like my son is doing this, but she's never given me grief about it. But I think part of it also was when I first took this job and moved out to the Midwest, the heartland of our country. Though one of the things, like vivid flashbulb memory, she said, please don't date out there. Like, I don't need you to find a nice Midwestern girl to settle down with and never come home. Because, like, she was worried that I would never come back home to be with, or to, back to the Philadelphia area.
Yep.
And so this was like another like nail in that coffin of like, oh no, now he's moving in with this Midwestern girl. Like, I'll never see my son again. But much less dramatic. But anyways, I think, this probably made it a little bit like more clear for her that I had no immediate intentions of leaving and going back home to the Philadelphia area, which she may have held out some hope for after college. Like, this would be a pit stop job, and then I'd eventually try to make my way back to the East Coast, which I was, that was sort of a possibility in my mind as well. But once I met the people out here and worked for, I enjoyed the work so much that I began to dismiss that much more and more as the time went on.
Just one more thing I was going to bring up about my mom too is like, I think, so honestly, probably like a month or two after we moved in, we got a cat. And I mean, my mom's like the biggest animal lover ever. So she's just in love with the fact that we have a cat. Like, she doesn't care that we're living together and both technically are like parents of the cat. She's the grandparent. She loves it. She loves being the grandparent cat mom. So if you have animal lover grandparents or parents, I'm sure they would love if you got a little animal for them.
I mean, it sounds like your families are being supportive in their own ways, even if they're not, 100% comfortable with the living arrangement. At least they're supportive of you as a couple.
And I don't think it's keeping them up at night either.
Yeah.
So
my parents love Elisa much more than past relationships. So they are, A1, like anything that gets her to stick around, I think they're all on board with. I was going to say, it was kind of funny, you brought up having the cat. My dad had a very opposite reaction. Again, this is more like his gut reaction, but not like something he truly feels in his heart. But when he heard that we were getting a cat, he was like, sort of going back to like the manly man, like masculinity thing, like a cat, like you're getting a cat? Why aren't you getting a dog? Like, the dog is like the man's animal or like the man's best friend. And he was, because I didn't grow up with cats. Elisa did, but yeah, I'd always been like a one dog household, very like nuclear family and whatnot. So anyways, yeah, he was very surprised to hear I was getting a cat, and that was even something I was interested in. But I think he's very,
we have a cool cat, so it helps win him over to be a cat guy.
I love Jackson. That's their cat's name.
Yes.
He's wonderful.
Yes.
And very shy.
Very shy.
Dan, so great to have you with us today. It was an awesome episode. I think it was downright magical, and really honored to have you as our first guest.
Thank you so much.
You killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm someone that both of you know.